Hey, welcome to my weekly Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Today we're going to be doing a live Q&A. I'm sure you're surprised, and if you're not, welcome anyway. Hit me up in the comments with hashtag replay if you're catching this on replay. And if you're just joining live here, do me a favor, hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. I'm in the Buffalo, New York area, lifelong resident here in Western New York. First, the agenda is going to be really simple. I'm going to do some shout outs. If you hit me up in the comments with the city and state, I'll do some quick shout outs. We're going to let some people get live, and then we're going to jump into live Q&A. But hold your questions, okay? Hold your questions for now until we get through this introductory part, because I don't want to lose your question. I want to try to answer your question. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. And today we're going to be talking about any questions you have related to starting or growing a successful freight broker or freight agency business. I'm glad you're here. Again, we do these Monday lives. It's a brand new year. This is the first live in 2026. So welcome. Thank you for joining me. And we have Steve from Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome. Not sure how many people we're going to have live today, but again, hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. We'll do some quick shout outs, and then we will jump into the live Q&A, okay? Adnan from Houston, welcome. So we got Houston and we got Texas and Florida. Who else we got? We got any more Texas? We usually have a whole bunch of Texas, maybe a little bit of Canada, maybe some, Colombia, maybe some Philippines, or Eastern Europe. I mean, the funny thing about it is this: when I started this Freight Broker Bootcamp program back in 2009, I never had any idea that we would have over 10,000 students. Actually, it's closer to 20,000, but I stopped counting. And that those students would be spread throughout the globe in over 16 different countries. Those are just the paid students who have enrolled in the Freight Broker Bootcamp startup program. That's not counting the hundreds of thousands, millions of other people that have watched my YouTube channel over the years from, all over the world. So thank you for joining me. Truly appreciate you guys being here. Again, quick shout out to those that are joining me live. Jason from Olivia, Minnesota. Aj Cordero from Pennsylvania. Shane, as always, from Utah. Welcome. Mama Grujic from Chicago. User MV something. Danny from Texas. Welcome. Finish Line Logistics from Sacramento, California. So we got people coming in again, California, Texas, Utah, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, all over the place. So wherever you're from, I thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope you have some really good questions today. I hope you're ready to dig in and try to peel back the onion and try to give you some answers to those difficult questions that you're facing, whether you're deciding to become a freight broker or a freight agent, whether you're deciding, any of the steps, or whether you're stuck in any of the steps along the way, right? This is what this is for, right? Q&A. This is an absolutely free Q&A. It costs you nothing to be here. So all I ask of you, the price of admission is very simple. Ask me some really good questions and hit the like button right now, no matter where you're at, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, wherever you're at. Do me a favor. The price of admission, didn't ask for your credit card, didn't ask for your email, didn't ask for anything to get into this live. Hit the like button now. I really appreciate you spreading the word. And a few more shout outs and we'll get the ball rolling here, okay? We have Lascelle from Canada. Welcome. And we got Steve. Okay, and we got Steve Osgowitz. He didn't say where he's from, but he had a question. So hold your questions until we get the ball rolling, okay? All right, I'm going to grab a quick drink, and then hopefully by then we got enough people live where we can get this show on the road, okay? Again, I think, we got another one. Jason Rouse. Did I say Jason? From Olivia? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, cool. Well, here's what I want to say something before we jump into this, because this is at top of mind and I don't want to forget about it. For those of you that have been following me for a period of time, you may have been a part of my Freight Broker Bootcamp startup program. You may have been a part of my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator coaching program, or you may just be somebody who's been reading my blog or watching YouTube or watching me on TikTok. What I want you to let you know is this. The Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program is going to be opening up soon, opening up for enrollment. Right now, it's closed for enrollment. You can't enroll. You can't get into that program right now. It's closed for enrollment, but we will be opening it up very soon. So what I wanted to mention to you guys is if you need help with sales, if you need help with getting shippers, right, which is one of the biggest struggling points or the issues that new brokers and new agents have, my suggestion to you is get on the freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Get on the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator waitlist at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. It's free to get on the waitlist, and you'll be the first to get notified when I open up enrollment for the Sales Accelerator. Now, I don't have an exact date yet, but my gut tells me it's probably going to be by the end of January. Okay. That's kind of where in my mind right now. There's a few things I got to get done in advance. So it'll open up by the end of January. You'll be the first to get notified. You'll get information. It's not a free program. It is a sales training and coaching mentoring program where I personally teach my favorite sales strategies, tactics, tools, but most importantly, my entire freight broker sales system that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker. So if you want more information about that when it opens up, if you need some help, if you're looking for a coach and a mentor specific to sales, okay, this is not for people that are just looking for startup help, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And now we have, Corey Buchan from Billings, Montana. And we got Brett from Ormond Beach, Florida. Okay, cool. All right, guys, let's rock and roll. Who's got questions? Hit me up with whatever questions you guys have, whether that be about becoming a freight broker, becoming a freight agent, rating, sales, carriers, anything that's going on inside the industry specific to AI or otherwise. Hit me up with any questions you guys have. I will do my absolute best to try to answer those questions. If I don't have the answers, I will try to point you in the right direction, okay? All right, cool. So what do we got? First question is from Adnan. What is your take on the economy and starting a new business as a freight broker? Just curious. Okay, good question. Fair question. So when you look at starting a business, right, there's really three, if you break it into three buckets. You've got a rising economy, you've got a declining economy, or you've got kind of a steady economy, somewhat steady, right? As we relate that back to logistics, right? Rates are up, rates are down, okay? So my strategy, or what I try to suggest to you, or at least share with you to enlighten you a little bit as to timing, what I want you to understand is this. There is no perfect time to start a freight brokerage or a freight agency. Let me explain why. If you started at the peak when rates are at their highest, right? The reason why rates are at their highest is because capacity, there's more loads than there are trucks. So it's harder to move those loads because it's harder to find equipment. Example one. If you started at the very bottom when rates are low, you've got more trucks to cover the loads, but rates are down, right? So there is no perfect time. But if I was going to start a business and I was going to try to time it, which I've never done, I just start my businesses and I based on the data that I've aggregated before doing my due diligence, start the business. If I could time it, I would want to time it at the bottom as it's about to turn up, not at the top when it's about to turn down. I hope that makes sense. So from an economic perspective, I'm not an economist, right? I don't get into politics, right? I don't talk about, I don't even watch the news, okay? I'm going to be very honest with you, okay? It drives my wife crazy and a lot of people think I'm nuts, but I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news in 20 years. Nothing good comes from watching the news, okay? So my point is that from an economic perspective, right, we've had a downturn. We've had what some people are calling a freight recession over the last several years. It's flattened out and rates are starting to turn back up. Some of that has to do with the FMCSA and compliance. with with illegal CDLs and English speaking requirements. And so capacity is starting to change. There's going to be more loads than there are trucks, which is going to drive rates up. That doesn't mean there's going to be more freight. It just means that rates are going to get a little bit better. Okay. So I believe that, like, if you look at it historically over the last 50 years, markets go up, markets go down, markets go up, markets go down. Here's what happens after they go down. What happens? They go up. So I don't know how long this is going to last, but here's what I know. I have new students, new graduates of the Freight Broker Bootcamp program, new graduates of my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program that are getting 2, 3, 4 new shippers every month. Okay. So here's the cool part about being a freight broker, a freight agent as a startup. You don't need a lot of clients in order to make a 6-figure income. The reality is, if you have 5, 1 or 2 handfuls, 5 to 10 clients that are giving you 1 or 2 loads a week, okay? At that point, even small shippers, you're going to have the opportunity to make a 6-figure income. And I'm not talking about, going out and landing Nestle or US Steel or Monster Energy or any of these big enterprise brands. I'm talking about smaller clients that can give you 1 or 2 or 3 loads a week, clients that are just going to give you some consistency and allow you to build a steady book of business, clients that are very accessible, right? As opposed to going through an RFP with US Steel or with some other big, large conglomerate. You're able to actually talk to the people, meet with the people, shake their hand, have conversations, and compete for that business on an even playing field. Okay. So I hope that helps. If you have a follow-up, let me know. It was kind of a long answer, but I think you get the point. Shane, thank you so much. Appreciate the kind words about the Sales Accelerator. I really enjoyed having you as a part of the program. It's not Sales Bootcamp. Don't get confused. Freight Broker Bootcamp is my startup program. That is for new brokers, new agents looking to get started. Okay. The Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is a sales coaching and mentoring program. It's a training, coaching, mentoring program. Right now, that's probably going to start. I have it kind of slated mentally here, not a hard number, but by the end of January. That's the reason why I suggested that you get on, whoever's interested or thinks they're going to need some sort of help getting clients, getting shippers, get on the wait list, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. What was the next question? Okay. So Steve asked this question, outlook for brokers in 2026. The outlook is this. I believe rates are going to go up. I don't know if freight volume is going to follow. If I had to bet, my bet is that freight volume will go up and rates will go up. Rates are going to go up initially because capacity is the number of available trucks and drivers is going down due to compliance issues. So it could be a perfect storm. If you're losing trucks and rates are going up, that creates a spread, that creates demand. Okay. Because what happens is this: as trucks leave the network, as they leave the road, as drivers leave the trucking universe for whatever reason, retirement or compliance related issues or whatever. Okay. What that does is it makes a shipper's job harder. So whereas they had everything under control when there was more trucks than there was loads, once it shifts, now demand for brokers goes up. And that's the perfect storm for a broker. So I hope that helps. Okay, Linnell asks, I just enrolled in bootcamp. How long should this course take me to finish doing it every day for 4 hours? Okay, so in most cases, the program takes people between 4 and 8 hours to complete the Freight Broker Bootcamp startup course. Okay. Most people do that over a 2 to 4 week period of time, depending upon their availability, depending upon the time that they have. Most people have a job or, other obligations. So, typically what I find, depending upon the individual, because it varies, some people can consume the content a lot quicker, but typically it's 4 to 8 hours over a 2 to 4 week period of time. Here's the cool part. If you signed up as a gold member, okay, which is our basic gold member, you have 1 year access to all of the tools, all of the training, all the support. Okay. So you have a full year to go through the program. Plenty of time, more than enough time. If you sign up for the platinum program, that is the lifetime access, but not only lifetime access, but lifetime support. That means anytime afterwards, if you have a question about starting or growing a successful freight brokerage, you can always email us, you can always message us, and we will do our best to try to guide you in the right direction. Because as a startup, the challenges you have as a startup look like this, but the challenges you're going to have 6 months in are going to look like this. And the challenges you're going to have after 1 year are going to look like this. They're all a little bit different. And so we support you along that journey if you are a platinum lifetime member. So I hope that helps. Okay. From your experience, what's the biggest mistake founders make when transitioning from operations to sales? Okay. Let me just frame that really quick. What's the biggest mistake founders make when transitioning from operations to sales? Okay. I'm not going to focus on the founders component. I'll just talk about operations to sales. If you're taking an operations person who has experience in sourcing trucks, negotiating with drivers, dispatching, right? Solving the day-to-day problems of getting a load from point A to point B in good condition with no problem. That's an operations person, okay? If they're going to transition to sales, there's a huge advantage to having that operational experience, right? Because you understand what it takes to move a load from A to Z. All right. As opposed to a salesperson that just comes in that's never done operations. That's number one. But one of the mistakes, what would be one of the biggest mistakes of operations moving into sales? Well, one of the mistakes of transitioning an operations person into sales is if they have a fear of cold calling, if they have a fear of doing outreach to people that are going to tell them no, right? I mean, yes, when you're talking to carriers, you do get some rejection, obviously. But the rejection level in sales is going to be much, much higher. So mentally, you have to be prepared to hear no more often. And you have to be okay with that because it is sales. Not everybody you talk to is going to like you. Not everybody you talk to is going to need what you offer. And not everybody to talk to is going to want to do business with you. But here's the reality, like I said before. In order to make 6 figures as a broker, you'll need 5 or 10 small to medium-sized clients, and you're in the money making 6-figure in profit. I'm not talking 6-figure in revenue. I'm talking about 6-figure in profit in the Hip National Bank. Okay. So you got to make sure that mentally you're prepared to engage from a sales perspective. Right. One of the other things I think the mistakes that they would run into would be trying to use some sort of generic sales pitch or trying to focus exclusively on price. Right. It's very common for somebody to come out and say, hey, Dennis, I'm a freight broker. Hey, I wonder if we might be able to try to save you some money on your freight. Something to that effect, right? Hey, what if we could save you some money on your freight? That's a very typical approach, especially coming from an operational guy or gal, because they understand what the trucks cost. And so now they're trying to have a race to the bottom, right? I don't sell on price. I don't focus on price. Yes, price is going to be a part of the equation. But if price is their number one variable on how they're determining who their partners are, I'm going to exit stage left. So the thing about price is this. If you focus on price, your prospect is going to focus on price. Okay? You win on price, you lose on price. But if you focus on service, you focus on relationship, you focus on trust, right? You focus on value, that relationship is obviously much, much stronger and has the opportunity to endure, difficult times, challenges, or issues. So I hope that helps. If you have a follow-up, let me know. Jay from Maryland, welcome. Adnan, there's a ton of success stories and a ton of video success stories on my YouTube channel. And there's a ton of testimonials of people that have completed my programs. And there's a ton of reviews, like Google reviews. You can go to look Freight Broker Bootcamp Google reviews. There's a ton of reviews there as well. So if you're looking for some third-party proof, which I strongly suggest you do before engaging with me or anybody, it's out there. Okay, it's it's somewhere online. So, but I am going to be setting up some more interviews with students that have seen success either from my bootcamp program or from my sales accelerator. So I do have that teed up here in 2026. One will probably be hitting YouTube here in the next month. Freight Hustler, at what point should a new broker say no to freight? And what red flags tells you a load or shipper will cause more damage than revenue? Okay. Well, let me just think about this really quick. At what point should a broker say no to freight? What red flags should tell you the load or shipper will cause more damage than revenue? Okay, so there's two opposite sides of the coin here. If a shipper is focused exclusively on price and they want you to be the cheapest or they can't use you, I typically don't work with those types of clients. Okay? Because it's going to be a constant battle, a race to the bottom, and I'm not interested in making 25 or 50 bucks a load. If I can't make a minimum of 100 bucks a load with a range of, in that 10 to 20% range, somewhere between 100 and 250 bucks, I'm not interested. Okay? So if the price is too low and they're focused exclusively on price, I don't compete, I exit. On the other side of the coin, if I contact a shipper or a shipper contacts me more likely, and they reach out to me and they offer a rate that is much higher than the going rate, a red flag should pop up. And so what they're trying to do potentially is induce you into moving their freight and then not paying you or doing something fraudulent throughout that transaction. So if the normal price to a shipper would be $2,000 on a load, right? You're going to pay the carrier $1,750. You're going to bill the client $2,000. You're going to make $250, just a hypothetical, and they're willing to pay you $3,000, and there's no difference. A red flag should pop up, and you should say, why? What's going on? What am I missing? Okay. Now there are reasons why it might cost $3,000, but you need to make sure that they're the correct reasons, right? So you have to be careful with, with shippers that are offering you much higher than normal market rates. The other thing, and the other side of the coin on that, if you are talking to a carrier and they're willing to move a load at significantly below market, so if normal price to a carrier is $1,750 for that lane, whatever it is, and they're willing to do it for $1,300, okay, that's a red flag. That should cause a red flag. That probably tells you that there's something wrong with that transaction. You should definitely take a much closer look. And if your gut tells you that there's something wrong, listen to your gut, okay? Continue to do the proper due diligence, ask questions, and if you're not satisfied with the answers, pass on that person, whether that be a carrier or a shipper, okay? So I hope that helps. That's a couple of tips that I think might help. If you have a follow-up, let me know. Steve asks, will AI affect brokers? Yes, it 100% will. But the good news is it's not going to put brokers or agents out of business. It's going to affect them positively more than negatively. Like everything that happens, there's positive and negative, okay? The positive, we'll start with the negative. The negative is if you're in a big brokerage like a C.H. Robinson or a TQL or a big W-2 inside call center type brokerage, right? Where they've broken the roles down into teams. Like they've got people doing check calls and they got people posting load boards and they got people, operations people, and then they've got separate salespeople and they've got separate roles. Some of those people, particularly on their operations side in the W-2 environment, are going to get downsized because AI and automation is going to be able to do the job almost as good, if not better, than some of those people on the operation side. Okay. Now, not all things are they going to be able to do better, but there's a lot of things. Perfect example, check calls, right? Checking on a load, or using technology like MacroPoint to ping the load. So technology and automation is going to have an impact on some of those jobs. But on the positive side, if you are looking to become a broker, your own licensed broker, or a freight agent, the cool part is this: all of the things that took up your time that are not high level, difficult, challenging, things to do, right? As a broker, those things are going to be able to be automated and dedicated to AI. So what you're going to do is you're going to figure out your workflow, right? Which includes calling shippers, doing quotes, right? Booking in loads, posting to the load board, calling carriers, dispatching trucks, right? Following up on PODs and documents, things like that, right? You're going to document that process, and wherever AI can help you with efficiencies and you trust the technology to do it at a high level of accuracy, you are now going to dedicate that to AI, which is going to allow you to do more in the areas that AI cannot do well. For example, human moments like sales and negotiating, solving high level problems, right? That are very complex, right? So brokers are actually going to be able to do more business and be more profitable with less employees and less fixed overhead. So what's going to happen is small brokers are going to have an easier time competing with large companies because technology is creating more of an even playing field, right? Back in the day, C.H. Robinson had all the great technology and all the small brokers had shit technology. Now the technology is accessible to everybody. It's very inexpensive, relatively speaking. And so what's happening is it's creating a little bit more of an even playing field, and it's going to allow small brokers to do much larger numbers and to increase their profitability through more efficiency. So it's not going to eliminate brokers. It's not going to eliminate agents, but it's going to enhance them. Now, if you stick your head in the sand and you say, oh, AI is bullshit, it's not going to help anybody, it's not going to do it. If you put your head in the sand, then you are going to struggle. In the next 3 to 5 years, you are going to struggle. You don't have to become an AI expert. Here's the cool part. Most of the technology that you're going to be using as a broker is going to be integrated into your CRM. It's going to be integrated into your TMS. It's going to be integrated into the different technologies, the load boards, the rating tools. So you're really not going to have to do a lot because the technology is already be integrated into all of the systems that you use day to day. Now, there are other independent systems where you can then add those things to your tech stack, but you don't have to become an AI guru in order to deploy AI in your business to gain efficiency. So I hope that helps. For asset-based brokers, what's the biggest operational mistake you see when they start brokering freight alongside their trucks? Biggest mistake. Well, one of the mistakes I see operational or asset-based brokers making is they're selling it like it's asset-based, and then they're brokering it without the shipper knowing. Or they're trying to backdoor broker it where they're like, well, we don't have a truck. They know they don't have trucks. Perfect example. Let's say you're an asset-based carrier and you got 5 trucks. Okay. And those trucks are typically running some of your own dedicated customers, or they're working for brokers and moving the broker's freight. So the reality is you've only got 5 sets of wheels that can be moving at any given point. That means you've only got an opportunity to be making money on 5 loads at a time. Okay. So the reality is if you go to a big shipper or go to any shipper and you try to sell your capacity that's already dedicated to other people beyond 5, and you don't have the capacity to do that, you're really lying. Okay. So you're over promising, under delivering. So my big thing with asset-based companies is you have to be transparent about the brokering component. You have to let them know that the reality is you're just as likely to be brokering this load as you will be moving it on your trucks, if that is the case. Now, if you've got a bunch of trucks that you can dedicate to a shipper, and you know that, great. But I'm a big believer in under promise, over deliver. And I see and hear that some of the asset base, especially the smaller asset based companies, have a tendency to over promise the trucks when they don't really have the capacity, when in reality, they're just looking to broker it. So be a little bit more transparent. That's one of the mistakes that I see. Anything else? What's the biggest operational mistake? Oh, and from an operational perspective, I think the reality is what you have to understand is that brokering a load to a third-party carrier versus moving a load with your own assets is very different, okay? You have control over your truck where you can dictate what happens because it's owned by the company. So you can't treat brokered loads the same way. And the reason why I say that is because you have to do a lot more due diligence, and you have to be a lot more careful on who you use as a third party carrier, because the problem is that you don't have ultimate control over that. So you got to do a lot more due diligence. You have to have a little bit less trust, particularly in new carriers. So I would say vetting new carriers and starting to use new carriers would be one of the areas where maybe an inside dispatch who's used to dealing with the same drivers over and over again and the same assets that they control might be a challenge or might be a breakdown. So I hope that helps on the operational side. What type of tracking system should we use for our carriers? There are tons of tracking systems out there now. One of the first and the one that's probably most talked about, at least has been over the last, let's call it the last decade, is MacroPoint, right? But there are lots of tracking systems. Most of those systems, you don't have to get as a separate standalone. Most of those systems are integrated or can be integrated into your TMS or your load board. So if you want to, there are a bunch out there. Of course, there's always startups, and some of them are great, but I would just be cautious, particularly with startups, because like anything else, right? If they don't have correct product market fit, if they don't have the proper funding or cash flow, the problem is that all of a sudden now the first thing you're going to start noticing is challenges and issues. And then all of a sudden they could disappear out of business because, investors don't want to continue to back them, or they just didn't get the right product market fit and they didn't get the traction. So there's a lot of attraction to some of the startups because sometimes they keep the rates low, the cost low, but there's a price for that, right? When you're talking about something that's so core to what a broker needs to do, which is tracking, right? And maintaining knowledge of where that load is at any given point. And maybe you need to provide that directly to the shipper themselves with some transparency, depending upon the tool. I wouldn't go cheap on the tracking. Okay. Hope that helps. Okay. I answered that one. Okay. It's 2026. You posted on LinkedIn recently, skip the RFP and look for faster turnaround shippers. What size company is typically 250 to 500 employees? Is that 2 million to 50 million? Okay. So here's what I would suggest. If you're a newer broker, the companies that you are going to get the most traction with are going to be companies that are doing, let's call it 5 million in sales up to 100 million in sales. Now that you could extend that up to 500 million in sales, because that's still a small business in the big scheme of business. But the smaller companies need you more than the larger companies. Okay. The smaller companies have less complex vetting and less complex systems for becoming an approved vendor than large companies do. So I strongly suggest that if you're a newer broker, newer agent, focus on smaller businesses. Typically what you do when you're figuring out the number of employees and you're trying to determine the revenue from that, it varies from industry to industry. But let me see what I think you look at from a manufacturing perspective. I think you look at about $100,000 per employee is kind of a little bit of a baseline, right? So if you got 50 employees times 100,000, that means they're doing 5 million in sales. Okay. So that's kind of a little bit of a baseline for you. If they've got 500 employees, then obviously they're doing 50 million in sales, right? So if you use that as a baseline, I think that'll give you an idea, because not all of the tools tell you what the revenue is, but a lot of them will tell you the number of employees. And so that should be a little bit of a guide for you. Hello, Dennis. For someone starting with no existing shipper relationships, what is a realistic timeline to see the first income generating load, assuming consistent daily effort? Okay, so this is a question I get all the time, and it's really an impossible question. But let me explain to you why. The reason why it's impossible is because everybody starting as a broker or an agent is starting at a different point, meaning they have different life experiences, they have different skills, okay? You could get on the phone and dial 8 hours a day, and I could get on the phone and dial for 1 hour a day, and I could outperform you potentially by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times, okay? Because of my background and my experience, okay? So a lot of that depends upon the individual. So I don't like to give hard numbers, and I'm not being difficult. I'm just being honest and transparent. But realistically, if you are someone who does not have a lot of sales background, okay, and you don't have your own clients, you will most likely start moving freight in your first 1 to 3 months. You'll start moving loads in your first 1 to 3 months if you have no experience in sales and you have no experience in brokerage, okay? Now, if you have experience in sales, you could start moving. I've had clients who had a sales background but didn't have the operational backgrounds that started moving loads their first week. I had a client that did $7,000 in profit their first week as a broker, and they didn't even know what the hell they were doing, but they knew how to sell, okay? So sales is that skill. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, right? Because ultimately, the hardest part of being a broker and an agent is getting clients, just like almost any other business, right? It's getting clients to trust you enough to give you their business, okay? So that's the reason why I put together the Sales Accelerator, okay? Not to beat a dead horse, but I put that Sales Accelerator together because new brokers and new agents, they'll go through the process of getting set up and they'll start making some sales calls and they'll realize that they're ill-prepared to really go out and try to compete in the marketplace. So I put the Sales Accelerator together as a way to even the playing field. The Sales Accelerator, in my opinion, is the fastest way for a brand new broker to hit $1 million in sales in their first 12 to 18 months by getting 2 to 4 new shippers per month. Okay? That's the reason why I put the program together. So I hope that helps. Okay, what separates brokers who survive year one from those who quietly disappear? It's a good question. Well, sales is going to be one, okay? If you aren't able to get new clients, even if you're able to get a couple of clients, but you're not able to continue to get clients, the problem is just through natural attrition, you're going to lose clients. And if you're losing more clients than you're getting, then you're going out of business. So sales is probably the biggest variable. The second one would be probably, your financial situation, right? Are you billing properly? Are you paying your carriers on time, right? Have you had bad debt because you didn't vet the shippers in advance and run credit on them? Are you working with a factoring company? Are you not working with a factoring company? So cash flow is one of the biggest issues a startup broker is going to have, because typically what happens is you are going to have to pay your pay your carriers before the shipper pays you. So let's just run a hypothetical. If you have a shipper that pays you in 40 days and you got to pay your carrier in 30 days, that's a negative 10 days of cash flow. Meaning you got to front money before you have money. That's where factoring comes in. That's where credit lines come in, right? That's where creative financing comes in. So I would say the two biggest ones probably are, are making sure that you're doing, sales, obviously having a system in place to get more clients than you're losing. That'll cause you to grow. If you lose more clients than you're getting, then that's going to cause you to shrink, obviously. The second part of it would be the financial management component, as I described. So I hope that helps. All right, guys, any final questions? We've been on here for 40 minutes. I appreciate everybody's time. This is your last chance. If you do have any questions, I'll probably take one or two, and then we're going to wrap it up for today. But again, if you're a brand new person who's just looking to get started as a freight broker or a freight agent, okay, and you don't know where to start, and you're looking for a roadmap, and you're looking for a system, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Okay. Trained over 10,000 students, had that program since 2009. I've personally done over $200 million as a freight broker, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money back guarantee on that Freight Broker Bootcamp startup program. Okay. So if you're looking for help as a startup, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. I have an entire system. As soon as you enroll, you'll get instant access to the online course and all the resources and tools. Now, if you are already a broker or already an agent and you're struggling on the sales side, okay, this is where the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator comes in. That's a training and coaching mentoring program where I work with you personally to teach you my best freight broker sales strategies, tactics, tools, the entire system that I use to do over $200 million as a broker that my clients have used to do tens of millions of dollars in sales. Okay. So that's the Sales Accelerator. It's not open for enrollment right now, but if you want to get on the wait list, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Are there any? Let me go back and see if there are any final questions. Okay, there's a few more questions. Okay. What should be our first hire after securing shippers? Okay, so if you are a solo broker, okay, or a solo agent, you're going to be what they call the chief cook and bottle washer. That means you're going to be doing sales, you're going to be doing operations, you're going to be doing financial, you're going to be doing it all, okay, when you first start. If you are a broker and you're just getting started and you start getting shippers, okay, and you're selling and doing the operations, the first hire that I would, me personally, would be a part-time hire. I would probably hire somebody to do the billing and paying carriers, AR and AP. This is me personally, because those things you can pay $15 an hour for. You can't pay $15 an hour for the sales and the operations piece, okay? So I would keep my hand on the ball as it relates to sales and operations, and I would hire someone to do the accounting side of it first. Now, you could probably do that part-time. After that, okay, and if you're an agent, you don't need to worry about the accounting side because you don't do billing or collections. After that, I would probably hire an operations person because it's easier to hire and train an effective operations person than it is to hire and train an effective salesperson. Plus, I want to be able to control the revenue as the owner. Now, eventually you can diversify that revenue into other people by hiring salespeople or agents or whatever. But first I would hire accounting. Then I would probably hire an operations person. That operations person would focus on, finding trucks, dispatching trucks, following up on PODs, things of that nature, right? They'll do the operational stuff, the day-to-day, which will allow you to dedicate your time to sales and getting more shippers. That's like a real good handshake combo that will allow you to grow rapidly. Okay. I have operations, but not sales. I did multiple trainings, but it's been hard. I follow all steps and created brokerage, have factoring and all. What's one thing I should do on first call? Okay, well, if this is a sales call, the number one thing you have to do is make a good first impression. And the way you don't do that is to sound like everybody else. And the way you do that is by being different, okay? So it really comes down to your sales strategy, your sales skills, and how you're introducing yourself to that prospect. Because if you go old school and you say, oh yeah, hey, my name's Dennis with XYZ, we have trucks in your area quite often. I was wondering if we could save you some money on your freight. They've heard it 1,000 times. They don't want to hear it again. And you are just another phone jockey. But if you create a compelling sales hook, like I teach you in my Sales Accelerator, that differentiates you from the competition, now, because you're different, you get treated differently. You can now have a conversation where you can build some rapport. You can start asking some questions and qualifying them. You can start understanding some of their challenges and issues. You can start navigating that sales process without having so much friction, particularly at the beginning of it. So I hope that helps. How much would the sales accelerator cost be? A lot. It's super expensive. No, it's not. Historically speaking, there's a couple of options. The prices typically range between $1,000 and $5,000, depending upon the options at that given point. Okay. So it ranges. It's not cheap. Okay. But when you look at ROI, let's look at it this way. If all you got out of, if it cost, I'm just hypothetical. Okay. If it cost you $5,000 to go through that program, it's an 8-week program. Okay. It's just bear with me at this example. If it cost you $5,000 and all you got out of that program, and you did horrible, you did terrible, you didn't listen to anything I said, and all you got was one small shipper that was doing one load a week, and you were making $200 profit on that one shipper, you would have made almost $11,000 in profit off of one small shipper. That's twice your return. That's a 2 times return on investment. Now, I don't know about you, but that would be a horrible result. But what my point is that your risk is negligible. The only way that you don't get an ROI on this program is if you don't show up or you don't deploy it or you quit. Okay? If you use what I teach you, you will get an ROI on this program. Okay? So it's really that simple. But the cost of the program ranges. There's some different variables and some different options. I haven't created the final package yet, but it's going to range somewhere between $1,000 and $5,000. So if you're in a position where you think you might be able to invest that or be willing to invest that, get on the wait list. Okay. I hand select every person in the program. You may have the money and I may not select you because you may not be a good fit for the program. I've done that many, many times, just so you know. Okay. So just know it's not a guarantee just because you get on the wait list and just because you have the money that you're going to be in the program. I hand select every single person that I work with. That's the reason why I do the calls personally, right? So I interview each person before I let them in the program. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much, Shakara. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We have somebody who joined us from South Africa. So welcome. Hey, thank you guys so much. I truly appreciate it. I'm gonna get out of here. I know you guys probably have a to-do list as long as my arm, because I know I do. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button wherever you're at. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're at. Do me a favor. If you learned one thing from this live, if you picked up one nugget from this live Q&A, hit the like button. And I truly appreciate you guys being here. I typically do these every Monday at noon. So make sure you set a reminder on your phone or on your computer. If you're not on my email list, get on my email list because I do send a notification out to everybody. Appreciate you guys being here. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. And I'll see you next Monday at noon Eastern. Thanks all.